Today I want to discuss with you some tips about building your own homemade portable sawmill, some mistakes that I've made, and some things not to repeat if you're going to plan to build your own. After building the first sawmill, there is some changes, some bugs to work out when you're building these things, and there's some tips I'd like to give you. First of all, I want to talk to you about the use of tires or casted wheels for a sawmill blade. One thing to consider as you're using these wheels, that if you're going to be milling out lumber at a small diameter of a tree, then the wheels are just fine. They'll work just fine. But me, when I built this thing, I built with the understanding that I was going to be milling larger diameter of trees. Sometimes I've milled things that are close to 3 inches across the butt of the tree. And when you have that much material that the blade is passing through and cutting through, there's a large pressure that's being pressed on that blade when you're pressing through and cutting through that material. And one thing I've noticed is when you're pushing through that material, that it presses back on the blade from the tracking of the tire. Now, you can track these blades, and I'll get to that in a minute. You can track these blades on these tires by just making some, making these tires adjustable in pitch as well as the tension. The problem is with these tires is because they're rounded, when you press the tension together and you tighten that blade up, there's only so much tension because they're rounded tires that it'll let you tension. Therefore, it's not as tight. If you're trying to push through heavier material, it's not as tight as it really needs to be in order to move through that material. And it causes your blade to want to push back off the wheels or untrack itself. Now, if you're going through smaller material, it's just fine. Passing through, like for instance, the piece of wood that I have there is just a size of a 2x6. I don't have any problem with the tires moving through the 2x6. It cuts really easy. So if a smaller diameter tree, it's not a problem. But if you have to push through larger diameter trees, it becomes an issue with these tires. And I would strongly suggest, if you're planning on doing any larger diameter trees, that the tires is probably not a good idea. You probably want to go through casted wheels of aluminum or some sort. Now, the reason why I originally went through the tires is because the tires have a large diameter. And when the metal blades pass around that diameter, it bends the blade less, and because it bends that blade less, it's less wear and tear on the blades. The smaller diameter it shrinks, the more that blade has to bend at a sharper angle, and it takes more life out of the blade having to bend that aggressively. So a larger diameter the better. But at the same time, I found out that for those who are trying to cut larger trees, it's not a good decision. Eventually I'm going to replace these tires and go with casted wheels. So the other problem that I had with the wheels, now this wasn't too bad of a problem because this was the learning curve when I first put this blade on here, is that I had some bugs to work out of it when I first built the machine. After I got the bugs worked out of the tracking, I didn't have really any problems with the blade coming off. But at first I did, eventually when a blade breaks, or sometimes they do come off, the problem with the tires is if it comes off the back, the blades will scar up the tire. As you see, this is all scarred up pretty badly. And what happened is this tire has deflated, and therefore I have to buy a whole nother, I think they're about $50 $55, somewhere around there. I have to buy a whole nother tire just because that blade had skipped off. So again, the tire idea is not the best idea. There are pros and cons with them. The better thing about the tires, I would say, is that the tires are extremely cheaper than the wheels, the casted wheels. The casted wheels will run you quite a big price, but the wheels are much cheaper. Some people ask me about these hubs and where I got the hubs. You can find these hubs just off of eBay. There's people on eBay that have their own little, garage shop that they build these things, and these are go-kart hubs. And these go-kart hubs fit these Harbor Freight trailer wheels. And all you have to do is just get on eBay and just type in go-kart hub, and you can find these. Pay attention to the diameter of what this fits on. And again, if you buy these and you buy yourself a rod, you need to cut in a keyway, which can be done with a grinder. If you buy a grinder at 1/4 of an inch disc and you very carefully just slice and onto this metal rod very carefully, it'll match up with the size of the key that fits into this hub, which causes it. You don't want to just weld that on there. It needs to be, you need a key in it, a keyway cut, because the keyway, when it's spinning, the keyway causes the thing not to break the welds and it to be able to remain on this thing as it's spinning. These, for people who ask the parts, these are the bearings. They're called pillow block bearings. And again, match it up to the size of your hub as well as to the diameter of the rod you'll be using. And that's the diameter of the pillow block bearings that you'll be doing. I want to move on to other topic here, and that is when I was putting this machine together, at first I was having some issues with it not having enough power, and you can actually see that in the latter parts of my sawmill build. If you recognize this machine under my username, I have the whole build on YouTube. But if you notice that it was taking me a while to cut through the pass through the log, because I had issues with the tension. I had a lot of belt slipping, therefore it lacked the power to go through the log, and therefore it was cutting slow in that video. And it started speeding up a lot faster after I got some of these issues fixed. And those issues were the diameter of this wheel here, that fits on, that spins the wheel. If you have this horsepower, the horsepower of this engine is about 13.5. I think that's what it was rated, and it's just a cheap Harbor Freight engine, and it's around that 13-14 horsepower. But as I had this diameter of this centrifugal clutch, that when this speeds up, the centrifugal clutch pinches and it clutches this belt, therefore engaging the sawmill. Now, when that takes place, I found that the diameter, at first I started with, I believe it was a 14 diameter wheel. And what happened is the sawmill tremendously lacked power, and it was cutting very slow. It lacked power. So I geared it down to a 12, and again, it still lacked power. Now this one here is a 10 inches diameter, 10 inches, and this one is adequate. But if you have a 13-14 horsepower engine, I would suggest maintaining somewhere between an 8 and a 10. Probably even 8 would be preferable, because you're looking for the amount of torque and speed, and you're looking for that sweet spot, and you're definitely not going to find it with a larger diameter wheel because it lacks the power. It can't turn the blade fast enough, or with the power that it needs. So the rating of these plates are sometimes something that you're just going to have to figure out by buying your plate and trial and error. But I definitely would suggest, if you have a 13-14 horsepower engine, that you keep to about a 10 inch, maybe even an 8 on this. Again, this centrifugal clutch, when you, I would suggest waiting until you get your engine. Once you get your engine, then get your centrifugal. You have to find out the diameter of the engine's. Now I forgot what the name of this is. I'm sure some of you just correct me in the comments below. But whatever this is, the diameter of the engine, and then you just buy the centrifugal clutch that matches this size. This was just a simple belt tensioner with a simple spring. This was my way of tensioning the belt. I found out that belt tensioning is a very important part of the machine's operation if you're doing it this style, because if the belt is slipping, if it's not tight enough, it'll make and break your machine, because this is how you're transferring power from the engine to the actual blade. And if you don't have all this right, then it will greatly affect how your sawmill cuts and how much power it has to rip through a log. All this you have to factor in. Some of you had asked and wrote in your comments, you thought that the carriage was front end heavy. Now, you will see that there's a part of the safety carriage there is bent, and that happened because I had the excavator and I accidentally dropped an enormous log on the trailer, which caused the whole trailer to bounce, which caused this thing to kind of topple over, and it bent right there. But what I found though is that this is not front end heavy. I've had no issues with it, and I know that it isn't because the engine, which is pretty much the heaviest part of the pieces that are on there, plus me on the back pushing from the back, I haven't had no issues with it. It seems to be balanced quite well. Although it may appear that way, I have had no issues whatsoever as far as the build. If you are concerned and you're building one of these carriages and you're concerned, you can always just extend the wheel up forward just a little bit more than what I have. I didn't do that because I was doing a portable machine and it was on a trailer, and I was trying to rate the length of the trailer with how much board, the foot of the boards I could cut. Like if I had a log, I can cut with I can cut out a, what was it? I believe it's a 14. I believe I can cut out a 14-foot log with this trailer, just barely. But if I was to move this forward and have extra carriage, and that's important. Your carriage size of your wheels is important because you have to factor in if you're doing a portable. If you're not doing a portable, it don't matter. You can put great big long rails on the ground if you want to, and it's not an issue. Some of you had asked, how do I keep the rail straight? Well, that was the thing. It was a learning curve, and when I built this thing, the rails were straight. Now they're straight as far as the rails and the carriage. I haven't had any problem with it trying to come off, the carriage coming off, except for on the situation where I dropped too heavy of a log on it, it caused the carriage to bounce off. But I built this now. I went ahead and started using this machine before I was actually even completely finished with it, because I just needed the lumber immediately, and because there was some projects that had to get done. And I went ahead and started using it before I had all the money and material to completely finish it. And I actually built this to where it was supposed to have a decking screwed onto this, and I never got that far. And so I've been using it the way with just rails, so it's not covered. But I would say, as far as this way, it's straight, but as far as the bow of the trailer, and this is where the problem comes in. I used this trailer to haul logs with, and as I did that, because I had hauled some really heavy logs on this trailer, it caused the trailers to somewhat bow, and that became a problem as I began milling the wood. There was a little bit of bowing here and there that it wasn't cutting completely straight. So what ended up having to happen in order to straighten that out, I had to put blocks underneath to try to bow it back out, and it worked. I was able to get it straightened out, but the problem is unless if you're going to invest in a lot of heavy material to put underneath the trailer to keep it from bowing, as you have weight on the neck of the trailer and it's only being held in one point of where the axles is, there's going to be a natural bowing as you have weight on there, if you do haul it with weight on there. And unless if you invest again with really heavy metal material and brace it to where there's no flex. This is lighter material. It was just an old boat trailer that I had gotten, and I just welded rails across and then the angle iron down it to be a rail for the carriage. But I was having issues with that. Now, as I've been hauling things, I've noticed that I really don't even need a portable trailer. I don't even know why I went ahead and did that. I guess it was just something, because when you usually look up homemade sawmills, you know, a lot of them are shown as portable, and I just went ahead and did the portable thing because I had a trailer available. But in the future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this trailer and use it for just hauling logs, because as you can see in some of my other videos, I've hauled big logs just pulling it with my Subaru Forester. I'm able to load logs onto this trailer and haul it with just my car. And because I'm not hauling it down the freeway, of course, because that would be quite a safety hazard. But I'm just here out in the country where I'm getting my logs from private party or off my own land. And so therefore I don't have to haul them a great distance or on major highways where there's safety issues at higher speeds. So I can just, you know, cruise at a very slow pace and in the car and haul these big logs just fine. So what I'm going to end up doing down the road, and I'll posting the videos when I get there, is I'll be taking the carriage off of the trailer and I'll be building rails. I'll be building a concrete platform, and then I'll be putting up rails to where I can cut wood about 16 feet in length, and it'll be a stationary sawmill, and then I could just use the trailer to haul the logs, and I can just haul them here to my house and just saw them here. I don't really need a portable sawmill. The stationary sawmill is just fine for my needs, as long as I have a trailer that I can haul the log home with. So that's just the route I'm going. But if you're going to be building that, I would suggest some sort of heavier metal material, and if not, at least the RV jacks that you see on RVs that level an RV up. I would suggest putting maybe 4 to 6 of those on this to help balance and straighten these things up if you're going to do a portable sawmill. That's a suggestion I would look into. So let's move on. A couple other items that some of you in the comments of the sawmill build were asking about, as far as the parts and their name and where to find them. So let's move on. Some of you asked what these wheels were called. They're called V-groove wheels. They're designed to roll on angle iron. And again, most of these items I bought off of eBay. If you just look up for V-groove wheel, you should be able to find them. And again, just take in consideration your weight, because they come in different sizes. And the larger sizes, I believe, are designed to hold heavier weight because they have heavier bearings inside of those wheels. Also, the guides, a point that I haven't seen much on the internet, are these guides here. And I've said this before in one of my other videos, but these guides here, when you have a big sawmill, it's not like a bandsaw. Although from what I can tell, they do work. The bandsaw, where you have a blade here, a blade there, and one behind like a bandsaw to be like a guide. These ones are designed to actually push down onto the blade, and as it pushes down, it keeps it cutting true and stable. Oh, that was another issue I forgot to say earlier, and that was because of the wheels or tires, and I'm unable to put as much tension as they should be, as I'm pushing it through a larger material like a log. It's not true with the smaller logs, but the larger logs, when you're actually having to help push it through the log, because they're tires and they won't tighten as much as they need to, the blade has a tendency of wanting to pitch down on you or not staying true to the cut, which creates issues. So as far as these things are concerned, though, I will tell you, when you buy these bearings, now this one comes from a company, a small company called Lynn, I believe it was Lynn Lumber, and it's a website you can go to, Lynn Lumber, and they have these bearings for sawmill guides. And one thing that you want to pay very close attention to, let's get a closer look. This is something that you want to pay attention to when you're installing these guides. Now this blade's getting a little rusty because I had a fire here, a wildland fire ripped through this area, and we barely saved the house. But normally I would have covered the sawmill up, but it's caused me to have to do a lot of work of cleanup and everything, and so unfortunately I neglected the sawmill and it got rained on, and this happened to it before I could get that far. So it was just misfortune that happened to us, but I'm going to end up having to try to clean this blade up. You just saw with it, it'll probably clean it up, just squirt it with kerosene. But as these blades are in here, you'll notice that this blade isn't pitched. You'll notice that the blade of this bearing is slightly pitched back further than it should be, and because of the lip here, this creates a problem because it causes it to be further down on the lip. So when you're shoving this or pushing the carriage through the material, it'll have a tendency, if you push too hard, it'll want to kind of skip off on you. And the reason being is because this bearing isn't completely parallel. So you got to be paying very much close attention to that. I had this measured up, I thought, very well, but somehow during the weld, I think it kind of changed on me, and I didn't notice it until I started having that problem, and I narrowed it down and finally figured out what was going on, is that the pitch of this bearing isn't completely parallel with this blade, and therefore it wants to skip off. So pay attention that when you're putting your guides on there, that they're spot on, because those things, small little details, just the little details have tremendous impact on your machine. And especially if you have a lot of little problems, just tiny things, the whole machine, it'll affect the whole machine in its operation, because a lot of little things adds up to a lot of big things. I heard someone say, you know, save the pennies and the nickels and the dollars will come. And that's true, even with problems. You know, if you have a lot of little problems, they add up to really big problems. And so if you pay attention to the little details and you sharpen up, it causes things to work and function like it should be. Okay, some of you had asked, where is my water drip to keep the blade cool? I hadn't yet installed one on this machine. It was my purpose too, but as I was using it, I was getting by because I had a squirt bottle. So ever so often I had a squirt bottle with kerosene in it, and you don't, they built these machines with a drip, but it isn't completely necessary to have a constant drip on them. You can use them, and ever so often, I had my bottle up here, and ever so often as it was passing through, I'd just grab the bottle, squirt, hit the blade, and then set the bottle back down. And I'd do that maybe once on every pass of a board. And I never had any problems with my belts, my blades heating up, or the stickiness. If I forgot to give it a shot of kerosene on the blade. Sometimes the pitch on these pine would kind of start gumming up and it would cut a little bit slower. But as soon as I would hit it up with some of that squirt bottle of that kerosene, it would take that pitch right off the blade and it would, you know, run smooth again. So that's how I was getting by. It is a best idea to put those drip bottles on the machine, because you don't have to manually sit there and spray the thing. But that's just how I got by, for those who asked. Again, this machine wasn't completely finished before I just started using it, and then now it hasn't been completely finished because I had the wildland fire hit the house, and it's made me have to it kind of slowed down my pace as far as finishing the machine, because it caused so much other stuff that had to have been done around here and clean up and fixing. So that's where I'm at. I don't claim to know everything. These are just tips and that I can give you as far as my own experience with these homemade machines, and I hope that you learn from my mistakes, and that way when you build your machine, you can take these factors in. Again, and final, you know, if you're going to go with these wheels, it is fine if you only have, like, for those who are making furniture, you don't need to cut these great big logs like I was cutting and that I've been cutting. You know, if you know, you're only going with, you know, 1 foot diameter logs, it's, I mean, usually for furniture, and these wheels aren't a problem with that, and I don't think you have to have that much tension. I just remember there's another question someone asked as far as how do you control the alignment of the blade with the wheels, and that is this tire here is on a hinge system, so it can control the pitch as it, you know, can pitch left to right. So I'm able to control the alignment that way. And that tire out there has a telescopic, it's mounted to a telescopic piece of metal, which telescopes out and in with a set screw. So as I tighten the screw, it goes out or it goes in. This one kind of, as I tighten the screw, it goes in and out with the pitch. And so that's how I'm able to control the tracking of the blade. Hopefully this was a good help to you, and looking at this as an honest review of what I would suggest if you're going to build your own machine. Some things that you need to take account of that hopefully you can learn from my experience and you don't have to repeat the same things. So good luck with your build.